Good afternoon, or good morning, or I guess good night, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thanks for joining the Social Business Triple Crown webcast. My name is Eric Boggs. I'm the founder and CEO at Argyle Social. Obviously, the hosts of the webcast. I'll kind of be the play-by-play coordinator and let our guests, Maria and Justin, do most of the talking. Briefly, Maria and Justin are both on the call already. They're going to introduce themselves, but Maria Ogniva is the head of community at Yammer. Justin Levy is the head of social media at Citrix. They're going to be talking about their experiences and insights around social business, which is obviously something that is of great interest to those of you on the call and many others that are out there working in the social media world. Before we really kick things off and get started, a few brief housekeeping notes. We're going to take lots of questions at the end of the call. You can go ahead and tweet them in as they pop in your mind. Tag them with the hashtag SocialBiz. We've got people on our end here that are aggregating your questions, and we'll pose them to Justin and Maria at the end of the conversation. We're recording the presentation, so if you need to hop off early or if you want to share the presentation with a friend or colleague, we're going to send you an email. My hunch is probably Monday or Tuesday with the recording. So that's good. One last thing, a brief commercial while we've got you here. Every week I record a podcast with Jay Baer called Social Pros. I encourage you to check it out. Justin, who's a guest on the webcast today, was actually one of the first guests on the Social Pros podcast, and Maria is going to be a guest in the next few weeks. But we've done interviews with Vanessa from Hilton, Scott Monty from Ford. It's a really good show, and we're happy to produce it. So without further ado, Maria and Justin, how about you guys introduce yourselves? Maria, we'll start with you, just kind of briefly who you are and what you do.
Sure, thanks. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me on the show today. My name is Maria Ogniva. In the social channels, I go by The Maria, and you can pretty much find me anywhere under that name. I work at Yammer, as you mentioned, and there I oversee all of our customer communities as well as social business, social media endeavors. And so more specifically, my job is to develop, grow, and maintain customer communities that help our customers connect and hone their best practices around making their organizations more collaborative. And on the social media side, I make sure that we have the right processes in place to activate the right people across the organization to help our customers in social media and to really be there for them and encourage them to tell their amazing stories. And I work at Yammer because I believe that no business can be effective externally if it's not effective internally, if people are not talking to each other and they're not collaborating. So that's a little bit
very well said. Very well said. Maria has the unique, I guess it's kind of a meta social job where she does social for a social software company. So she's a double dipper, I guess. Justin Levy from Citrix. Hello. Please tell everybody a bit about yourself.
Hey everyone, my name is Justin Levy. I lead social media global scale for the online division of Citrix, so the Citrix Online as it's usually referenced. And we are the creators of the products such as GoToWebinar, which we're using for today's webinar, GoToMeeting, GoToAssist, that entire GoTo product line. So I oversee the social media strategy and team for our products as well as for what our corporate strategy is. I'm also the editor-in-chief of the workshifting.com site that we run and that we founded about 3 years ago. And a lot of my focus is on empowerment, operations, reporting across the business, back on metrics that matter to the business, to our strategic imperatives, and really serving as a consultant, internal consultant across the business as people want to put together social strategies or strategies that involve social at one level or another.
Awesome. Those are excellent intros because they very much align with the narrative that we're going to be talking about today, which is social across the organization. So we're going to talk about what we've called the social business triple crown, which are 3 functional areas: sales and marketing, customer service, and product development. Obviously, it's horse racing season, so we thought that the analogy works. And I'm on my 5th mint julep, and I'm wearing a funny hat, so the analogy extends all the way through to that. The thing is this. So I think that social marketing, social media as a functional area or as a process or as a concept has sort of entered its 2nd phase, where it is much more about integrating processes, which is something that I think Maria and Justin both spoke to very clearly in their introductions. And you know, when you think about the Triple Crown and horse racing, winning the Preakness or winning the Kentucky Derby is a big accomplishment, right? Just winning one functional area is really important. But really the greatest racers and the best horses win all 3 of these. And I guess the challenge that the 3 of us put forth to you guys that are on the call today is that, you know, focus on winning a single race, maybe in customer service or in sales and marketing, but don't take your eyes off the prize, which is sort of winning the social business game, which really involves all of these functional areas and requires, you know, sort of broader thinking. The reason that we're doing this call with Justin and Maria is that this is really hard, right? And it's an important concept. We work with hundreds of community managers and social strategists, and, you know, insert any sort of social title at Argyle Social, and a few of them are like Maria and like Justin in the sense that they've made this leap into an influential cross-functional role that touches lots of parts of the business in a social context. Many others are on the opposite end of that spectrum in the sense that they're pigeonholed in a corner and they're kind of scrounging for resources and recognition and having a hard time justifying the social function. Most customers that we work with, most people in general, are in between. And those of you that are on the call, you kind of know where you are on that spectrum. In our experience, in my personal experience, the customers and the social professionals that make the leap are the ones that get it, in the sense that they understand that social is about business, it's about integrating social into other programs and processes, and we've got 2 of the best in the business in Justin and Maria on the call, so we want them to talk about how they've elevated their game and how they've kind of become more of a strategic played more of a strategic role inside of the organization. And quite frankly, the more people like Justin and Maria that are thinking about social from a business perspective, the better it is for all of us. This is certainly, you know, the social professional community is obviously tightly connected, and people are transparent and sharing. And this is definitely a case of a, you know, rising tide raises all boats. So I really look forward to the conversation. We'll go ahead and kick things off actually with sort of the first leg of the Triple Crown, which is sales and marketing. And this is really where most people kind of first think when they you know, talk about social business or social media marketing. And you know, in order to kind of paint a picture of what the world looks like, you know, there's marketing, which is generally where social sits, and then there's sales, which is, you know, a very different beast. And you know, there's long been sort of this divide between marketing and sales, and social amplifies that in a really big way. So Maria, let's kick off the conversation with you a little bit. How do you strike a balance between marketing objectives and community objectives?
Good question. So if you design your organization to be customer-centric, then there isn't really a huge leap between marketing and community, right? Because what you should be doing in marketing is actually helping users tell your story, right? And helping users tell their stories. And that's really the modern day marketing is sort of not, oh, here's my commercial and I'm going on TV and I'm telling you what you should think. It's more shaped by the collective voices of your customers and your employees. right?
Yeah.
So if you sort of get all the other pieces right, and that's very, very difficult, by the way, then your marketing function will be that much easier. It'll be more authentic. Of course, you still have to do things like, user education and making sure that people know what your product does. But, really the marketing role these days is more of a facilitator of these stories. And in my community function, that's exactly what I do. I help create, grow, and maintain spaces where customers are able to exchange best practices, are able to tell their stories, and really learn from each other. So it becomes a conversation between customers with each other and us, right? And it's sort of like this multi-layer, multi-directional conversation, which is what characterizes social, right? It's all about the conversation. And so I feel like the two are pretty well aligned. It's just a matter of, curating and understanding, what customers want and helping them do their job, really deeply understanding what their jobs are and helping them achieve that. So,
Justin, when we did some prep for this webcast earlier in the week, I remember when we were talking about these issues, you had a bit more of a lead gen sort of piece of your job, and obviously sort of the marketing directive is to feed sales and to drive revenue, but I recall that you had much more of a lead gen role in terms of what you do at Citrix. Can you sort of share a little bit of that in context with what Maria just talked about?
Sure. So, one of the ways that we think of, obviously being a larger company, we have a broad marketing mix that includes TV, radio, podcast, social, just a broad marketing mix. So one of my roles with social is to look at that marketing mix, and I try to find ways that we can, one, share those stories or amplify them or integrate them into the strategies. So if we're doing a commercial, for example, kind of easy stuff, can we take that and also add that to our YouTube channel and drive traffic through a partnership with our media and search teams through that? But also to your point, Eric, one of the things that we've done is, one of the easiest ways in business to get more attention for social is to be able to deliver on metrics that matter for the business. Number of followers, number of fans, things like that are all these soft metrics that live outside the radar and are fun, and we like to report on. But if you're able to report back on actual, how are you affecting the top or bottom lines of the business, how are you affecting the lead funnel and things of that nature, that's where we move from a social media conversation to a social business conversation. And so one of the things that we've done is to make a strong partnership with our media team and roll out Twitter Promoted, and we use that to drive leads into our lead funnel by using Twitter Promoted to promote our webinars, some of our key webinars with thought leaders in the industry, and we've been able to significantly reduce our cost per lead with that. And because of the way that we've set up our systems internally, we're able to watch those leads as they go through the kind of traditional sales funnel, so we can actually see what our return on those efforts are.
Awesome. I'd be interested to hear this from both of you guys. How do you sort of track that from, a tweet pops up that's, hey, Maria, I'm interested in Yammer, or, if it's a promoted products case, someone hits a link and hits a landing page. How are you guys tracking that all the way through? Because both of you have sales organizations, right? Like the sales guys are talking on the phone to prospects. Is that correct?
That's correct. So actually our marketing function is very closely integrated with our sales function. So we actually have a group inside of our marketing organization that's called Sales Enablement. And what they do is they create solutions, right? Solutions content and various other touch points for the sales team to be able to get more leads and talk to their customers, their prospects. So part of what we do is definitely like what Justin mentioned, webinars and sort of like the email nurturing, drip campaigns, like the more traditional stuff. But we also do a ton with social media. So sometimes, we do a webinar or some kind of a white paper or put some kind of content out there. Again, the object is to help our customers get their jobs done. So we figure out, what audience we're talking to. Are we talking to the CIO? Are we talking to the line of business manager? And we create content that's relevant to them, and then we track the lead, and that converts into a funnel. So on the outside, but we also have a really interesting model in that we're freemium. So anyone can sign up for Yammer, and then most of our sales efforts actually come from converting our free users to paid users. So basically the way that our funnel works is that we do thought leadership, we do articles and press and all these things outside. And then that drives interest, that drives sign-up, and from that point forward, we can convert our free users to paid users. We never cold call. We never reach out to any lists. We cultivate, our own user base, because those are the people that are using the product. They see the value, and we just have to partner with them to make it a compelling use case for the entire organization.
Sure.
So how do we track? Success? Well, we have a very robust reporting capability. We have our own internal metrics that show us, how the different efforts are doing. Plus, of course, we use our CRM system to help understand, the customer journey and how that works. Plus, the email systems like I'm pretty sure we use Marketo. So all these things are working in tandem and working in concert, and we do our best to sort of connect all them. So we have a very full picture of what happens from the moment of, someone signs up to when they become a customer. So.
Yeah. Justin, does your model sort of look the same way, where you kind of stitch together a lot of these disparate systems?
Yeah, it looks, I mean, you marry together various systems, right? I mean, especially as a large enterprise, we have large enterprise scale tools as well, and no one tool is going to do it perfectly across everything. But, for something as simple as, for example, the Twitter promoted example that I provided, it's fairly simple for us in the sense that the link that we use, or the landing page that we use, tracks directly into our CRM, which happens to be Salesforce. And so as long as we're applying the metrics, we're adding in the metrics and setting up those campaigns in Salesforce properly, we're able to watch that traffic. Twitter provides us some of the metrics. We're able to look at some metrics through some of our other social tools. And then watch, the leads and the revenue from within our CRM. But there are, when you look at trying to, affect that across other areas, that's where it becomes harder from a tool set perspective, and you do have to do some of the stitching, such as when you try to look at something, for example, as a customer retention. How do you know whether or not that tweet or that status update or that blog post is what prevented that customer from canceling or kept them in our funnel? And those become harder, and the ones that the industry is trying to solve for a little more.
Sure.
Yes. So Eric, we actually use this amazing tool called Argyle Social. True story. That actually helps us understand the link between social and web behavior. Because
now you guys know why Maria's on the call.
But we're actually true fans, and this is what it's all about. It's about cultivating champions of your product by having a kick-ass product. And that's what you guys have. So the point I was making is it helps us connect social activity. So because, number of followers is sort of useless. You can't pay rent in eyeballs. You can't pay rent in number of Twitter followers. What matters is the behavior that social encourages. So for example, for every tweet that we send out, for every blog post that we write, for every external link that we tweet out that's, industry, something about the industry, we hold ourselves accountable, and we're able to understand, as a result of that tweet, how many people actually went to our website, did they sign up? So we track that pretty closely, and we also track the efficacy of what we say, and we constantly course correct and A/B test the verbiage, right, and even like the timing of the tweet. make sure that, things convert while still adding value and while still helping our customers do their jobs and telling their stories.
Sure. So it sounds like the theme from you guys, it sounds like it's connecting hoses in terms of social to Salesforce to marketing automation to Google Analytics, and obviously that's important, and it's hard. I mean, it's not easy to do, right? Like you've got to lean on other people in your organization to sort of twist the knobs and pull the levers. I want to change gears very briefly, and we talked about this a little bit, but you guys have sales teams. So those sales teams tweet, and do they tweet effectively?
Yeah, so I'll start. Our company is very social. Social is really part of our DNA. We hire for a certain set of skills. We hire for a cultural fit. And, because we are still, a fairly young company, although we're growing really, really fast, we were built with social as the foundation. It's part of it's in our blood. So everyone tweets. The challenge is when everyone tweets is, to make sure that people have, the latest and greatest best practices, making sure that we're marching towards the same goal. Because as I mentioned before, your voice, it's not your voice anymore, right? It's the collective voice of your customers and your employees. And your employees are your biggest advocates. Because how can you expect a customer to advocate for you if your employees don't, right? So we do, from our team, we do a lot of internal alignment, training, right? And I don't like to approach it from the standpoint of thou shalt not do this. It's more of a facilitator role. And we actually use Yammer as well as, in-person meetings to make sure that everyone is well supported and everyone is marching sort of to a similar drum, maybe not the same drum.
Yeah. Justin, you had, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You were talking about training, and I want to make sure, because I know Justin had some interesting things to share about the training programs that he runs for his sales and marketing teams, and actually for some of your clients, right, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, so we have a training module that we put teams through that when they're going to be empowered to use social. Obviously, in a company that grows as fast as ours currently has grown, it's hard to keep up with the hiring cycle. And so we have strategically started to empower teams and roll out social throughout the organization, as well as providing worldwide social media guidelines and worldwide social media training at a high level to the entire organization. And then we also provide through a series that we run a monthly ongoing educational opportunity for our global marketing team, where we bring in a thought leader to speak about a topic to do with social media, social business that's important to our organization at the time. Whether it's something that we want more clarity on because it's a new platform and we're considering whether or not we should start to integrate it into our campaigns, whether it's a focus or a strategic imperative of the company, or it's to help individuals and team members understand how they might look at social a bit differently, as opposed to, for example, just being a checklist of, tweet this, Facebook that, and pin this. How can we strategically implement and scale social within the business? So we run those. Those are all posted to an intranet that's available to the rest of the company as well. And as we run these training seminars, these ongoing educational opportunities, we invite particular teams that we think would also benefit for it from across the business.
Sure. So that's good stuff. I mean, to kind of keep coming back to our theme, we're sort of in the first leg of the Triple Crown, talking about sales and marketing, and Maria and Justin are the respective social heads of their organizations, and they're not really talking about sales and marketing. They're talking about training their people. They're talking about sort of infrastructure connectivity. I mean, these are like business level problems, so it's very cool to hear you guys paint this picture. I want to point out a few takeaways, and then I want to bounce over to leg number 2, which is client services. We've talked a little bit about social leads and community building. And we've had this slide up for a couple minutes now while we've been talking here about the way that the socially influenced lead comes into the organization versus the traditional lead, and how you really kind of need to treat people differently. And I would actually, this is probably interesting. Do either of you guys, so you're doing things to track that social has been a touch point for these leads. Are your sales guys treating leads differently, or are you marketing to leads differently if they've had social interactions, or are you not there yet, or do you even think that's important at all? And that's a pretty broad question, I recognize.
Yeah, do we market to them differently? We talk to them differently. So for example, if someone tweets and they need some help rolling out their network, that's a very different conversation that we get involved, a cross-functional team of people who can actually do that, with training, with making sure that they have the right sort of rollout process and are thinking strategically through their business problems. So that's very different than knowing that this is a customer via the customer record, and we've sent them an email, we've invited them to the webinar, they've attended, and then they talk to us on Twitter saying they like us. So I mean, no two tweets are the same. So they're different flavors, right? There's the actionable tweet. It's like, I need something. Can you help me? Then there's the story. Oh my God, we love Yammer. This is, we've made a bunch of cupcakes to celebrate that we have Yammer. Versus, just sort of background information on the client. So we try to look at all of that and make really good decisions at the customer level.
So let's some brief takeaways are on your screen here in terms of kind of a summary of what we talked about a little bit with Justin and Maria around sales and marketing. These are things you need to think about as sort of the social business professional. And in short, if you can't pass the baton from social to sales and marketing, you're going to lose this leg of the race, right? So this is sort of a key handoff, and I would argue it's probably the most important handoff for the social professional that's trying to elevate their game as a sort of a strategic asset inside of their company. So let's talk about segment number 2, which is customer service and support. And this is also a very well-known social use case. And to me, a lot of the problems here boil down to channel, right? So someone may tweet a question and they might not get an answer, or someone may tweet a question and they get an answer through a different medium. The classic case is a customer will tweet us a question that requires like a long email response, and there kind of becomes this like channel symmetry problem of, I asked a question on Twitter, but we have to call you to talk about it, and that often causes a bit of static. I want to talk specifically about the support strategies that you guys have implemented, and I want to focus specifically on your staffing strategies, because this to me was an interesting contrast between the two of you. And I want to start with you, Justin. Even though you're sort of a much larger organization, we spent some time talking about Glenn yesterday. Can you talk about how sort of your organization works from a support capacity, and how this very special gentleman named Glenn fits into the picture?
Yeah, of course. So when you go to set up social initially for your company, especially if you're a larger company or a fast-growing company, you could be a small company that's just hiring very quickly. One of the things that you have to consider is, how will the social function be able to support the rest of the organization, whether that's to this kind of well-connected traffic cop, as the first bullet or the first header, of that person will take, or that team will take in all the messages and then go into the organization and rally the different team members, or they might know information or have some type of intranet setup or what have you, or can you actually structure it in a way that you have dotted lines into the social team, but that person actually might live in a team and be empowered within that function. So the way that we have it set up is that we have this very special gentleman named Glenn. You'll see him through our social accounts as, tag it as Glenn or GD with the caret symbol if he's responding to somebody. And so on the team, we have a full-time community manager, that's Rhonda, and then we have Glenn, who sits as a full-time customer support representative in our global customer support team and reports through that organization, but dotted lines into the social team, and what he's responsible for is full-time social support. So his job is to be in our social accounts all day long and providing technical and customer level support, because we know that 65% of all of our inbound social mentions or requests are of a support nature. So Glenn, being within our global customer support team and coming up through the support organization, previously, it's not like he was recruited, hired for this role, and then placed into that organization. He's able to stay on top of the things that are going on in real time within the organization based on call volume, email requests, and other things that may be going on with any one of our products. And also that team is responsible for our support forums and a lot of our other support mechanisms and communication channels with our customers. So he is able to take all of those learnings and all of that expertise and apply it in a social support function, which shortens and short circuits our time to get a response back to the customer, as opposed to that coming into social, which lives in the marketing function right now, and having to reach out to the global customer support team and receive that information.
So that's sort of the Glenn model. Maria, tell us a little bit about the Molly model.
Sure. So there's an amazing social media person on my team. She's a lifesaver. Her name is Molly.
And she's amazing. I met Molly last week. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Molly. Yeah, so she's amazing, and she really serves, she's on my team, and she serves as that traffic cop. So she sees every tweet that's written to us via an at mention or about us. Yeah. And she understands what the action is, and she triages it appropriately. So sometimes it's a support question, but it's an easy one, right? It's a lightweight question, sort of like, can you give me a customer case study about X, Y, and Z, or this happened on my screen, can you explain it, or something changed in the product, what should I do differently? Yeah. There are things that she can handle herself, and then there are things, of course, that she escalates to me. But when it's a pure support issue, I have a bug, something broke, something froze, then she knows that she has to activate the support team. So we have a pretty sophisticated assignment and tagging system within our social listening platform. But we also work within our bug tracking system environment, which is Zendesk for us. Yeah. So we're able to understand what the issue is and maintain that feedback loop for the customer. And of course, we actually use Yammer quite a bit, because at the speed of social, right, you don't have the luxury of, picking up the phone and knowing who to call. And then if that person doesn't have the answer or is on vacation, what do you do then? Sure. We use the collective brain, the collective intelligence of the whole organization to help us solve problems that are great, right? We're not sure if it's like a support issue or what it is. And a lot of times you can't very specifically delineate what the issue is. And sometimes, the group that you thought would know the answer doesn't. So when you put it out there and you let the entire organization problem solve around that issue, you get much better quality answers back, and you get them much faster. So you're able to pass, that speed on to the customer. So that's really worked well for us. We use 3 systems, I guess: the social listening, tagging. We use Zendesk, and we use Yammer, and they, to various extents, they integrate. We actually have a Zendesk integration with Yammer, so that definitely streamlines things along.
So, Eric, the other thing that I'd also suggest is, into this conversation is you have to also consider what industry or vertical you're from, right? So all three of us on this call represent a technology SaaS-based company in one size or another organization. So some schools are obviously different depending on the size of our customer base or our needs. The way we scale it are probably similar as each company continues to grow and things of that nature, even though methodologies or tactics might be a little different based on a variety of reasons. But I also have colleagues and friends that work in controlled industries, in verticals, government and things of that nature, military and what have you, where some of these tactics that we're describing and strategies might not work for them. I know somebody that worked for a state government that, he chose to, the way he chose to manage it, had to manage it, was because they were communicating on behalf of the state. They had everything come into these centralized two people, and those two people would go into the state departments and actually get the questions, because some of them might be of a legal level response.
Yeah.
Some of them might take other departments, and when you communicate on behalf of a government entity, that takes on a different strategy and tactic. So that's always important to note that this is what works for our three companies, and mine and Maria's companies also, but recognize that we're both in the technology vertical and sector.
Yeah. How do you guys plan to scale beyond Molly and Glenn, respectively? So like on the screen here it says build support systems at scale, but people don't scale. And right now you have these people, very smart, very capable people, but they're kind of a single point of failure. Do you sort of fill that gap with more people, or are you guys thinking about ways you can solve those problems with technology?
So
go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Maria.
Maria, let's start with you.
Okay, sounds good. So we do both. On the people front, we try to get as many people into the systems that we're using, so that way, there are multiple levels of failover. People are people, they get sick, they go on vacation, they leave jobs. So what we do actually with support specifically is we have them in the same social media tool, and we assign certain action items to them. And so when they get the assignments, it's actually, it goes to an email alias, right? So anyone who subscribes to that alias has the ability to act on that particular week. So you gotta create different pathways and different ways for the technology to connect people and create signals, right, for actionability. And from a technology standpoint, we do use Yammer quite a bit, so that way it's not like any one person that you have to call or email, and then if they're not there, then you're sort of screwed. The entire organization can help you problem solve and get better answers out of it.
Yeah. Anything to add to that, Justin?
Yeah, I think you have to look at scalable. So we have backups in place for the team members, for Glenn and what have you, but you also have to have that transfer of knowledge into systems that allow you to, so all that knowledge isn't within that single person, because that person will move and grow, possibly within your company, possibly in another company, things of that nature. And so creating playbooks and training guides, tool sets that are able to scale. And also, when we look at when do we have the need to bring on additional support resources, well, you have to look at that from a metrics perspective. So look at, again, metrics that matter to the business. So from a customer support, what's important to a traditional customer support environment, it's call volume, it's the length of call, call volume, or the time spent on calls, the number of inbound cases and open, closed cases, things of that nature. So when you apply that to social, using different social media, management systems, you can look at the number of inbound requests that are coming in. You can apply the time metrics to it, and you can figure out when you look at it, when you kind of up-level the metrics, you can look at, whether or not from a resource or a bandwidth perspective, are we able to effectively handle this, or are we seeing a trend that suggests that our response times are starting to increase in the wrong direction, starting to grow. It takes us longer to actually respond to our folks through social channels, and if so, what can we do to fix that? That might be a tool set conversation, or that might be a people question.
Awesome. I'm really glad you brought that up because we hadn't talked about that around support yet. But mapping social support to actual client services and support metrics makes a ton of sense. I'm glad you mentioned that, Justin. And also sort of the people versus product or process. That's also again sort of a social business level question that you have to answer. Let's bounce over and talk about product development. And this is sort of I guess the third leg of the race, and based on my experience, it's the one that doesn't get a lot of play. But if you think about it, product development is often all about understanding the customer and the customer hive mind. And the social professionals, we have unique access to highly structured, highly engaged communities of customers. So getting customer feedback is kind of easier for us in the social space. And this is a big opportunity area for a lot of social pros, and I don't know that people recognize it quite as much. So actually, I want to do a poll, and you can sort of answer internally, or you can tweet and tag your tweet with hashtag socialbiz. But out of curiosity, how often do you, as the social person inside of your organization, meet with your product team? I mean, that of all places to start in terms of mapping social insights and social signals into product development, a regular recurring conversation is probably a reasonable place to sort of begin that process. I know, Maria, we talked about this a bit around some customer communities that you've developed at Yammer. Can you share some insight into how you guys build this feedback loop and pump it into your product teams?
Absolutely. So I think when answering that question, it's important to define the word meet, right? Yep. So my team meets with the product team twice a week, but we also bounce ideas off of each other and give each other feedback throughout, every day. But also, we have a very interesting model in that it's not just, social and product. We have a huge army of customer success experts who work with customers, with our premium customers, to really help them create better strategies around their social collaboration. So they would help their clients, launch Yammer, make sure that it's meeting objectives, check in, make sure that the networks are healthy, make sure that, it's used across the organization, and the C-level executives are on board, and sort of like that change management aspect of a large organization kind of play. So when we look at what our customers are telling us, we have more touch points than just the social sphere, right? There's Twitter, but that's only a part of it. Yeah. We use user voice to collect feedback, but that's just a part of it. We have the CSM organization. We have our customer communities. We receive customer feedback across so many touch points. The challenge is to be able to identify trends and really synthesize what people are telling us. And so you get into, you start to become better at understanding if something is sort of an overarching trend or if it's an issue with just one customer. So the key, no matter how you internalize this feedback and what you do with it, the key is to really understand why. So this is where the partnership with the product team really happens. We have this amazing advocate, product advocate, her name is Cindy, and she's really, really incredibly effective at being able to dig into what the customer is saying to us and understand what the problem is. And she's able to see trends sort of across everything because she's plugged into everything. She does focus groups, she does emails, right? When someone tweets, we oftentimes send them to email with Cindy. She does phone calls. She talks to our customer community. So she has this really holistic picture across all these touch points. It's all about trends, and it's all about creating mechanisms for this conversation. So I'll just say one final thing. We also talk to our very strategic level relationship customers very closely. We have this organization called the Customer Advisory Board. We literally just had a 2-day meeting here in San Francisco, and we talked to them about, how they're using Yammer, what they would like to see, and we sort of use them as a proxy, as a window into the rest of our customer organization. So it's a very complex issue. You sort of have to look at it from very, very many touch points. If you're looking just at social, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Justin, how do you guys think about these issues at Citrix?
In a similar way, I think what Maria hit on, and you're hearing, I think, as an underlying theme of all of this is we're not talking about just tool sets, right? You're not talking about Twitter and Facebook, and I mean, that's a very siloed conversation that won't get you very far within a business. Like Maria said, followers don't really mean much. They're important to some metrics, but don't mean much to business imperatives. And so you see how when you grow as a socialized business, or if you're going to become a social business, it's taking traditional processes or processes that your business already has in place and layering in social there. So, for example, to the product development question or piece of this is, we tag our inbound tweets that are of a support nature, or might be a feature or request, enhancement request, or bug, and we work those, we export those, and we work those into other workflows that already exist with our engineering teams and with our product development teams, and we review those not only on, because we're working on some other reporting initiatives right now, so that will be on a little more real-time scale eventually, but also we review with the entire line of business from the GM down once a quarter on all of our social reporting. But as part of that is also what are we seeing from a product development request and bug standpoint from a support initiative. But I think that product development as a term, you also have to look at it from another perspective, because not only do you have these bug and feature enhancement requests, which on a prep call, we kind of joked around that most of us already know this. Most of the people on this call that lead social for their companies or might work in a support function, you already know your 10 or 15 or 20 or 50 bugs and enhancement requests. They tend to be the same. So it just helps to provide additional weight or maybe put some priority around them if you're looking at a queue of priority. But then you also have the other side of product development is future roadmap, product roadmaps and integrations and things of that nature that the company, that a product team may be looking into. So providing thought leadership on not where are we right now, but where do we need to be, a year, 3 and 5 years from now from a product perspective. So, looking at both of them, I'm sure at Argyle and at Yammer, you guys are dealing with as well, what are the things we know we need to fix right now within the product, or where in the immediate roadmap are we taking it to, but what's the next version of Argyle, for example, and how do we get there, and what does social provide us with, from listening with that?
Yeah, you're right on point. I think Maria summed it up nicely when she said it's a very complex equation. And I think that pretty much applies to all of the functional areas we've talked about.
And one of the things too, and I know we talked about this in our prep call, one of the things that's hard from a product development standpoint that can sometimes be frustrating from a marketer standpoint, or from a, even more specifically from a social media lead standpoint, is something that seems very simple that may come in as a bug request through any channel, including social, sometimes is much more complex to the engineering team and the product development folks, and doesn't have as high of a priority as you would think it would be. Something as simple as, why can't this button be red instead of blue because we have X number of requests for it? That sometimes to scale that across the product and across the infrastructure of the product can be incredibly difficult compared to other issues.
Yeah, there's definitely, sort of the bang for your buck trade-off that you have to consider with any product question, and particularly around social, which is often sort of a quick response, quick to please type of feedback loop, quick change product questions or product feedback often doesn't align with the reality of how products are developed. So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. It's 10 till 2. We had a few more things kind of teed up to talk about, but I want to jump ahead to get to Q&A because some questions are already piling in. This has been great, Maria and Justin. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to share what you guys have been working on. We got a few questions I'd like for you guys to address, and if you have questions, go ahead and tweet them in. We'll try to get to as many as we can. We talked a little bit about building support systems that scale, and that it's not always the right thing just to throw more people at the problem. How do you convince executives that social actually, particularly around support, requires a technical product investment? Did you guys have to fight that battle at all?
We didn't, just because we were very lucky in that, social is the foundation of what we do. But of course, that rarely ever happens. So definitely lots of our peers, face that. And how do you sell it to the C-suite? Well, first of all, illustrate why this is worth your while. Maybe start small and figure out what the business objective is, because it's not just social. If you walk into the CEO's office and you say, I'm here to get more followers, you'll get left out of the room. You have to understand what the underlying business issue is, because every business has, sort of like the overarching goal, so some place where they're hurting. So the goal is to understand where the process is lacking, where things are breaking down, and that's your low-hanging fruit, and that's where you can use social to affect change, illustrate how it's helped, whatever the objective is, right? Get closer to your customers, reduce support times, save money, whatever your objective is. Map what you're doing to that, and that's how you get buy-in, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Justin.
Again, you have to, one thing that we've repeated over and over is you have to present metrics that matter to the business. So to think of your executives or your C-suite's concerns, and what are the things that they're concerned about. They're certainly not concerned whether or not you went from 1,500 followers to 2,000 followers this week. They're concerned with lead gen, depending on what function they lead. Lead gen, marketing campaigns, marketing mix. It might be top and bottom line. It might be customer retention. So what are their concerns, and how can you up-level your conversation to strategies that matter to the business? We're fortunate at my company to have broad executive support on our initiatives, and so they're very supportive. Our executives are very interested in social, so it makes the conversations a little easier to provide them with information from the industry. And I'll tell you, one thing that's always a little fun to do if you really want to get something moving forward is sometimes show what your competitors are doing.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Take a competitive overview, and if your company has a certain competitor, or certain 2 or 3 competitors in your site that you want to gain market share on, or that might be creeping up on your market share, and you can show what they're doing from a social perspective, and now put real metrics to it, not just they tweet a lot sort of thing, not anecdotal, but put real metrics to it and present that as a business case with an ask of what you want to do to improve your social campaigns or your social strategy. That'll usually gain a few legs as well.
Fear is incredibly motivating. So we've got 3 more questions I want to ask you guys, and I want you to answer them very quickly. So actually, I'm going to ask each of you one, and then we'll see who I pick to ask the third. So Justin, what's more important when it comes to social support structure, speed or accuracy?
Both. I don't think. I honestly, you can't say. I wouldn't ever
spoken like a true executive.
I wouldn't give up accuracy for speed. I think that
Okay.
you can look at if something's going to, I think you have to be responsive, but if something's going to be harder to solve or going to take more time, be responsive, let the customer know that you heard their concern and you were looking into it, and then
Okay.
you might take that off privately into a separate conversation, whether that's over DM with that customer, that might be a phone call or an email, and work through the problem, keeping them updated. But just to ignore the inbound request, they don't know whether or not you're working on it. So
Yeah.
to be accurate, and from a speed perspective, you wouldn't want to say something haphazardly that isn't accurate.
All right, Maria, so everybody's busy, right? So your core customers are really busy. How do you incentivize to participate in these feedback communities? How do you convince them that it matters?
Well, everyone is tuned into their favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
So you have to figure out, your job is to figure out, internally and externally, inside your organization, outside of your organization, every which way possible. You have to figure out what people want, what their jobs are, and how you can help them get their jobs done. So you have to position the community as a resource to get their jobs done. And, it has to back up the claims. So you have to constantly, develop these communities to the point where they add value, and they add value to the different participants, right? Whether they're a newbie or they're an expert. So it's really about listening and understanding how you can make this particular interaction part of people's day and a critical part of their day, not just a nice to have. Because
Sure.
no one's going to use another tool. No one's going to join another community. The people are going to join what's important to them. So provide the content and the context that's going to help them drive their goals forward.
Yeah.
So that's how you get people to participate everywhere, right? Internally, externally.
Yeah, sure. We're going to hold off on question number 3 for when we reprise this webcast 12 months from now. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Quite a few people stayed all the way through for the entire hour, and we really appreciate that. We're going to cut off so that everybody can make it to the 2 o'clock in time. Justin and Maria, thank you guys so much for taking the time to chat and share all of your insights. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds good.
Absolutely. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye, guys.
guys.